watched him eat it. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. I can see him on Mega Live, just hot on that thing, and you could tell he was real close. He was getting real excited about it and just kind of following it, but you could tell he just couldn't get himself to do it. And I was looking off the end of the boat there. I could see him just right behind it. That was so cool. Oh, not a giant walleye by any means, but it's a pretty solid one. That was pretty nuts there. Can't say I've sight fished many walleyes in my lifetime. That's what's cool about this lake we're on. Crystal clear, and there is a bunch of walleyes up shallow here. We were just crawling around this flat. Definitely found a little group of them here, and we're gonna get her back. In front of me here is a good spread of hard baits. It's springtime, it's a beautiful morning here. And these fish, they're up shallow, they can really group up and they'll get on these big expansive flats. That's what we're gonna be targeting here today, and that's where these hard baits really come to play. So I'm just rigging up a few different baits here, some of my springtime favorites. Jerkbait, spy bait, smallmouth and walleyes, they just can't stand this thing. It drives them nuts. They gotta eat it whenever it comes over the top of their heads. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I have that jerkbait to where I can cover a bunch of water fast. I can really rip this thing and get a lot of reaction bites out of these fish with that jerkbait. Those pre-spawn and post-spawn fish, they're both just wanting to eat. That's the only thing on their minds is eat, eat, eat. And one thing too with this jerkbait, if you have the luxuries of having forward-facing sonar, you can really pick apart these fish and really know exactly how they want this thing worked, especially in the walleye world, smallmouth too. You can really see how they react with the forward-facing sonar, and then you can really key in how you need to be working that bait. As you can see right there, looking at Mega Live, this is what I'm talking about, these big, expansive flats. I'm talking about them being grouped up, and that's what I mean by it right there. That's exactly what we're looking for. It's gonna be kind of a hodgepodge, I'm guessing here, of walleyes and smallmouth. Just by looking at them, you know, some of these fish that are up top a little bit higher, I'm guessing that those are gonna be more of our smallmouth, those more tight grouped, you know, a lot more active fish that you can see, and a lot of these kind of off the edge. You can see that's the top there. We get that good hard read, and then that quick break. And a lot of these fish off the break are, what I'm guessing are gonna be our walleyes here. They're on that thing. You can see my bait right there at about 45. Oh. Oh. Gosh, he's fired up. Important thing when doing this with these walleyes, especially in this calm conditions, if you let that thing sit for too long, a lot of times they catch on to your gig and they know what you're doing. They know that thing's not real. But there are times when you have to definitely hang that bait, let it float, especially when you get those deeper ones, kind of hanging off the edge where you have to kind of soak that bait in front of their head for a second. Got that one. We just went over this flat here and they are everywhere. Kind of like we mentioned earlier, a lot of these walleyes will hang out on the edges of these flats, sometimes creep up on the edges on the tops a little bit, and right there we could see a whole bunch of them hanging off the edge here. And we suspected right, they were walleyes. Got them on the old jerkbait. It's becoming one of the new hottest baits in the walleye world, I'd say. It's definitely a fish catching machine. It's pretty nuts how well that jerkbait gets these walleyes to react. You know, a lot of times in the springtime, you know, there's the old classics, the jig and a minnow, the cork and a leech that everyone always goes for. When you get in, you know, sometimes tougher conditions, or when they're really chewing, this thing in both of those, I mean, it can really, really shine. That first one there, like I said, he seemed to like it a little bit slower. I got his attention working it really fast. And now I can see that these fish really like it when I slow way down. Once they get keyed in on it and start tracking it, slowing down, but like I said, not too slow to where they lose attention in it, but just slow enough that they'll follow it and commit. These springtime fish, they can get a little sluggish, and that's definitely what we have going on here. But again, that forward facing just helps this deal so much, seeing how these fish react. And like I said, as they start to get into these summer staging areas, I'll show you guys here on a map exactly what I'm talking about. Here we have this shallow flat. As you can see, 5 foot up on top. It's a lot of gravel, rock where these fish are gonna spawn. Here we're catching them a lot on this steeper edge, as you can see here. These little areas where you see these hard breaks. You can see my squiggles there where I was kind of keeping the boat. There's a couple of big groups hanging around these real steep breaks. Those fish getting ready to head out to these areas, these real deep areas, you know, where they'll get late June, July, August. They'll get out in these 30, 40 foot areas even sometimes. So these fish are just prepping to get out there. They're staging up, grouping up hard, putting the feed bag back on after they get done spawning. And again, getting ready to head out to their summer areas. Gosh, they're on that thing. Look at them. Oh boy. That guy shoot up. Oh, I'm about to get bit. Got him. Gosh, you can see him on there getting all fired up. Almost called my shot on that one. Look at them, they're still all over up there. Cookie cutter good ones, man. So much fun in the springtime. With that jerkbait, man. As you can see there on the Mega Live, I was just barely twitching that thing, and that's just what's so dang nice about this jerkbait. It's like I was saying, you can manipulate this to however the fish want this thing. I can work it up high, I can sink it down to these fish, I can work it super slow if that's how they want it, or I can rip this thing a million miles an hour. And it's just one of those baits that's just so much fun, especially when you mix it with the forward facing like I am. You're hearing all kinds of noises come out of me. I'm squealing like a little girl. It doesn't get old when you see a couple big walleyes creeping up on that thing and they start doing flips on it. It is a blast jerking up walleyes in the springtime. We're gonna get her back. So with that jerkbait there, there's a few key things to when fishing walleyes with this bait. There's a few things that I always try and keep in mind when picking out what jerkbait I want and what you need in the boat. Although walleye can be really tough to get to commit, you can almost use that to your advantage in terms of the simplicity of things. I like to use real natural colors. Walleyes, obviously, they key in on mainly bait fish, perch, minnows, natural, you know, shiners, fatheads that are swimming around in these lakes. And again, on the simplicity side of things, all you'll really need is a shallow running jerkbait and a deeper running jerkbait. That shallow one in the springtime, again, when these fish are kind of up on these flats in that 6 to 10, 12 foot range, that jerkbait, the shallow running jerkbait, will get you covered in pretty much all conditions. But then again, having that deeper running jerkbait is really nice. As the summer moves on. As we start to get towards the end of spring, early summer, these fish will move out to their summer staging areas and you can still catch them on this. So with the setup that I'm running here for this jerkbait, it's pretty dang close to your typical, conventional jerkbait setup. One thing that's a little bit different that I like is just a little bit longer rod, a little bit more beefed up rod. This is a 7-foot medium. I like that longer rod just for making these long casts. Again, we're in super clear water here today. So getting as far away from those fish as I can definitely helps the cause. You definitely get a lot more bites trying to poke them out as far as you can. But also, with walleyes, obviously we're dealing with, you can get into some, high 20s, 30-inch fish doing this. And with that little bit longer rod, I can really handle those fish well. At the same time, it's soft enough with that medium to where I have that soft tip on the rod, which is really important for jerkbait fishing. Getting that good action, you want that good snap in the rod, because if you have too stiff of a rod, you don't get quite as good action, you don't get as good a feel on a bait. But if it's too soft, then you don't get enough snap, and that's what triggers those fish, is that dart and that jerkbait. As far as the reel goes, just a 150 size. Again, kind of that perfect medium ground of where I can have a bigger spool on here to fit a lot of line, where I can make those long casts, but not too big to where it's not too clunky. I'm not working too hard throughout the day to, work this bait. And the line is just 12-pound fluorocarbon. 12-pound is pretty much all I ever use for throwing a jerkbait, whether it's bass, walleyes, you name it. Again, not too thick to where you lose a lot of action in that bait, but not too thin to where I have to worry about, breaking off fish. So you'll notice, oh, I got another one. Feels like maybe a decent one. Gosh, they're up there. Oh yeah, that's a decent one. Like I was saying, You'll notice that my cadence has switched up here a little bit than what I first started with. At first, I was really working that jerkbait, trying to see if I can, you know, fish them fast. Ooh, really fish them fast, just to try and work through the school, but it just wasn't really working. I was just getting a lot of fish following. So you'll notice that I really slowed down. I'm just kind of slowly twitching my rod up. I kind of got my cadence kind of locked in here to how I can see on the Mega Live that these fish, that's what really fires them up the most, is just those soft little twitches. They're not coming after it super fast. They're all pretty slow and sluggish. So when just those soft twitches, I can keep those fish interested long enough, keep them following that bait to where you can kind of see they'll start to lose attention. I'll jerk it. Bam, they're on it again. They'll start to lose attention, I'll jerk it, and the next thing you know, they're coming up and grabbing that thing. And they are getting it pretty dang good. That wind started to pick up too, and you can definitely tell things are starting to get more lively around here. They're getting more active. They're starting to swim around. Let me grab pliers here. These fish are starting to definitely swim around more. They're moving around across this flat way more, and just their mood is starting to change. Just this little bit of wind, it's crazy how much of a difference it makes. It was glass calm when we got out here. Got this little bit of a chop going. Ooh, he's feisty, we'll get him back. Got this little bit of a chop going, and all of a sudden these fish, now they're starting to get a lot more happy, you know. They're willing, a lot more fish are willing to come up. At first it was like one fish, two fish is kind of starting to come up, and now when I bring over a group of them, almost the entire group is coming up. It's incredible the difference that just a little bit of wind, just a little bit of weather change can make to these fish's attitudes. These walleyes, they're smart critters, especially in this clear water. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is just keeping an eye on the weather. You know, sometimes when things get tough again, when it gets glass calm, keeping an eye where these fish are at and using that forward facing to really just tell their mood. Although it's nice to see my bait, and it definitely helps, you know, helps put a lot more fish in the boat to be able to see my bait, just to see these fish's moods, just to see, you know, whether they're up high, close to bottom. It tells you so much without even making a cast, what baits I need to go for or how I need to be working this jerkbait.